tell me about this, Jackson. You've created Upwardly. What was your upbringing like? You're born in Calgary?
Yeah, Zach, I was born in Calgary, born and raised Calgarian. I'm actually a fourth generation entrepreneur here in this city. So I come from a long line of Calgarians. I love the city. I'm passionate about it. And ultimately, I'm optimistic about the city. Um, I've spent time away, which I think is a common theme for a lot of Calgarians. You've spent time in other places, yet there's always a great reason to come back. It's family, it's quality of life, it's education, it's work, it's opportunity. And that certainly drew me back when I was deciding where to start my life and where to start my career.
It's home, isn't it?
It's home. It's home, right? You have family and friends. I know a lot of people joke about Calgary being the biggest little city in the world, but it truly feels that way. I feel like everybody is just one degree of separation from each other in this city, and that's what I love about it.
Oh, absolutely. So you went to school at St. FX. Did you know all along that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yes, I absolutely did. I knew I would do something, but never really knew what it was. I actually grew up playing competitive sports. I was a football and rugby guy. Um, Out of high school, I ended up getting a scholarship down to the University of San Diego for rugby.
Oh, wow.
And so that's where I started back in 2014, 2015. And while I was there, I got a call to join Team Canada in Europe for a little bit and play rugby over there. So, of course, dropped out of school, went and pursued that dream and felt that, I got that opportunity, but it was really important for me to go and get my degree and ultimately, start something one day. And so that's what I did. I went to St. FX. Shout out all my ex people that are have been called culty at times. It certainly can seem like that, but really thankful for the opportunity I had to go to that school, be a part of that community, and really see a completely different side of Canada that I'd never seen before.
Are you rocking your ring right now?
I don't have it on me right now. I find that I wear it to events and traveling certainly because you're bound to run into somebody. But day to day, I have a bad habit of misplacing things. So I've always been worried of I keep it in a safe place for when I need it. But if I have it every day, it'll probably, I might lose it.
No, I love that. What were some of the businesses that you were growing up around? What kind of industries were they in, and how did they influence what you're doing today?
Well, my main business partner, Jill, who's my mother, she actually started a chain when I was brought into this world almost 27 years ago. It was called Schwartzy's. It was a bagel shop, and she had spent time in San Francisco and seen bagels at that time were just taking off. And so she put on her entrepreneurial hat, created a chain here, and my dad, Michael, ended up joining on with her, and they grew it all across Western Canada, and ended up selling it off when they had four kids. So it was pretty cool to see that and to grow up around that level of, starting something new, creating the awareness around it, building it up, and then ultimately exiting. And the way they put our family as the priority was something that certainly inspired me and still does to this day. I have three younger siblings, so I'm 27. My sister Kennedy is 26. My little brother Noah is 25, and my baby sister Allie is 24. So it's one, 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 like back to back to back to back. I think that's insane now when I think about it. But it was funny, growing up, my parents were given a license plate that said 4 under 4 because we'd roll up to a McDonald's and all four of us that were under the age of 4 years old would file out of this car and we'd probably be a walking circus for people that were looking at it. But, great family upbringing and my family's really important to me for sure.
How has it been working with a relative? Because at times
Yeah.
we've heard it can be challenging. I've done that in the past. One of my first businesses, I did it with my mom. So we would go to work together, we'd come home together. It was an interesting dynamic. Sometimes we did butt heads, but most of the times it was fun.
I yeah, I have the same perspective on it, and I know. that it doesn't work for everybody, right? Ultimately, that isn't it. But I think for Jill and I, we both had our end goal was similar in driving community impact, building something successful, inspiring that change. I think both of us really live by the motto, if somebody says you should do something about that, do something about that. And so when we had we both brought very unique sets of skills and perspectives and experience to what upwardly ultimately is. And I think because we're both so different but compatible in that way, it's been such a fun time for me, being able to spend more time with family. And Jill has been incredible, and keeping the personal relationship separate from the professional is key, right? That is key. At the end of the day, that's my mom. I'm her son. That's number one. Now let's go do something really cool and empowering together. And that's really the perspective we take into the office every day.
No, I love that. And your team has been growing over the years, and that's been exciting to see,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah, that's number one. For me, starting a business is our culture and our team. You're nothing without them. So surrounding yourself with people that inspire you and motivate you every single day is really important to me, and it's important to everyone that's joined our team. We've had interns, we've had people with us, and seeing the impact on their lives that Upwardly has provided is certainly gratifying for any entrepreneur, but it also carries a really heavy weight, right? You have people's lives that are relying on you, and that can be a lot of pressure. And it's something that I love because I want to be on the field. There's an athletic term for you. I want to be in the game. I want that pressure, and we wouldn't be where we are without our amazing team. Our director of recruitment, Dan, who's come over from England, an incredible mind and leader. And we have our two talent specialists, Brianna and Aaron, who have bought into what Upwardly is and have furthered their careers along, but also have been changing lives every day. There's nothing more fun than making a call to a candidate and saying, you've got the role, right? The career of your dreams, it's yours now. And those moments are what really fire us up as a team. It can get emotional, it's fulfilling, and it's fun. So yeah, we love our team. We're continuing to grow, and nothing but excitement for what 2023 has to bring.
Oh, yeah. Now, when you look at your background of football and rugby, that grit, that inner strength, is it applied in different ways now in entrepreneurship and in business today?
Mm-hmm. 100%, Zach. I think sports are something that really prepare you for the workplace and for a career. But I also think everything, if you're not in sports, your passions, your hobbies, all of those things ultimately lead into the kind of person you're going to be in your career. For me, it was sports, getting that team sport aspect where it's not just about one person, it's about all of them. And for me, I was often in leadership positions on the teams that I was on. So you're only as good as your weakest link. So if somebody's down, someone's having a bad day, I would always take it upon myself to just be right beside them. What are we talking about? What's going on? If they're performing at that level, all of us are accomplishing that goal. And that's something that's certainly translated into the workplace now that mental health is more talked about and we care about it more than we ever did. I think I'm very lucky that I got to play the sports that I did, to be in the positions I was in, and to, share the field with thousands of incredible people.
You bring up the word mental health, and it's something that now more than ever needs to be brought out there, the attention on there. Have you always been somebody that's been positive and uplifting, or is there moments where you also feel certain things? And when you do, what do you do to get yourself out of those dark times?
That is a great and loaded question. I love it. For me, mental health was a journey like it is for everyone. And I think at a younger age, looking back, reflecting, you can see where, if only I knew what I knew now, right? If I knew kind of this is why I'm feeling that way, or this is why I did that. Uh, I love that mental health has come to the forefront of discussion and people are open and talking about it. It's better for everyone. But for me, that's somebody that's really optimistic and happy, and I care about positivity. For me, that was really a decision that I made because I knew what it was like to be in the weeds, and I know that that is a normal thing. You can't just decide not to be. And I used to get so down on myself, down on things. I still do, right? Every day you go through a roller coaster of feelings and emotions. And, understanding that came from leaning on my friends and my network. I realized that while we all love to say, hey, if you ever want to talk about something, I'm here for you. You can talk to me about it. I realized that nobody was really taking me up on that, or I wasn't even taking my friends up on that when they would say, hey, I'm here for you if you want to talk. There is that internal wall that you build that you don't really want to seek that out. And for me, I decided if I see a friend of mine or I feel like something's going on, the best way that I can help, because it's in my nature to do so, is I can be vulnerable with them about myself. And that might unlock them to, instead of feeling like they're unloading on me, they're now connecting with me in a shared experience or giving me perspective, because two things are true. I love them, they love me. Now they can really be vulnerable and talk about the things that they go through because I've done that myself. And all of my friends now do that with their circles, and it grows, and it's just a powerful way to approach mental health, to be there more than just saying you're there, but showing you're there and showing that action. It's something that I'll always do. And when my friends are able to be there for me, there's nothing more powerful than that.
No, there's something about true friends, isn't there? Those ride or die people. Yeah.
There really is, right? And it's been cool to go through life where, you go through school
Mhm.
and elementary and junior high and high school, and you're kind of forced to be around that crew, right? Like you're not in a place where you're independent and you're choosing the people you want to be around. And for me, I felt a little bit stuck in the circles I have. I love a lot of the people I grew up with, but I always felt like, I was around them because that's your social life going through school. And once you come out of school, and there's a whole world out there. It was really amazing to me to move down to Austin, Texas out of university, to go where I knew nobody, and to really figure out who I was as a person, but to choose the kind of people that I wanted to surround myself with. Positive and happy and good with everyone, but the people that really had an impression on me, I would love to make plans with them. I would love to get to know them more. I would love to bring them around. And, when you choose to surround yourself with like-minded, inspiring, positive people, the world becomes, that much more fun.
You talk about the shift. Like you have a choice to make to stay in a rut or have a negative mindset. You found a way to shine bright, inspire people. Does that uplift you when you're around people and you're also giving back? So, Beacons of Hope, you've co founded,
Hmm.
which I find phenomenal and it's much needed in our city. And I think it should be everywhere across Canada.
I agree.
Stuff like that. Does that inspire you to have purpose, meaning?
100%. I think you're right on the money there, Zach. And it's something that I'm starting to realize too as a young man, that that's what drives me. Being able to lift people up around me and inspire connection and positivity, selfishly, that makes me feel good. And that's why I do it, is to make sure that I'm feeling good by lifting people up around me. And, starting a business with Upwardly, starting Beacons of Hope, which I'm sure we'll talk about, those pressures, the things that I was taking on that they were snowballing into, that were so large and so big, it really took a ton out of me. And I realized that, in order for me to be there for people, I had to be the best version of myself. So if I was operating at 50%, which we've all been there, and sometimes lower, if I can't get myself up to, 90%, my impact on others around me won't be as much as I want it to be. So there is a beauty in prioritizing yourself first so that you can be the person you want to be for others around you. And I'm very fortunate to have been reflective and to have thought about things that way. Shout out my great parents and family around me that have probably inspired that. Um, but that's really, as a young man going through life, that's been a fun thing to do, is find ways to prioritize myself and care for myself so that ultimately I can give as much as I can to people around me.
When you look back, friends, family, fur babies, it all matters. Recently you just got yourself one. Uh,
Yeah, yes. Yeah, so my golden, it's my family's dog. So we grew up, um, shout out to the legendary dog. For those of you that know me will know of Bevo, who was our golden retriever growing up. He was with me before puberty and into manhood. And, everyone who has a pet can relate to the love and optimism and just positivity and support they bring into your life. And that was Bevo for us, an amazing golden retriever who could you just had to smile around him. We lost him about last year, and after a full life, it was really hard for our family for sure because it's like losing a family member. And after a year without him, I think all of us realized the impact that having him in our lives had. And so we looked at getting another one. And fortunately, the same breeder that our golden boy Bevo came from had another litter. And all of a sudden, we had Easy, who is his full name is Ezekiel Money McDonough,
but
Easy Money. And we had Easy, and so yeah, he's 11 weeks old now, and I feel a lift. My family feels a lift having him around. He's a beautiful boy, and we're really fortunate to have that joy in our lives.
it's one of the hardest things to lose a pup. My goodness. Like it, yeah, there's definitely a void. You come home and you're like, oh, where is he or where is she? Right. So,
Yeah, no, like why can't they live forever? I don't know. I don't know. I wish they could, but I think that the feeling and the life that you live, it's an important lesson, right? To, while their lives are short, to make them full and fulfilling, and that's a great transition into human life, right? You never know what's promised. You never know how long you'll be on this beautiful earth. But if you make every day fulfilling and joyful and find a way, even in your darkest moments, to do something maybe for someone else or to just try and get up out of bed and go on a walk. I've been there on all of those. And that's the beauty of life, right? It's a roller coaster ride. It's ups and downs and everything in between. And uh, seeing the lifespan of a dog has definitely shown me, maybe given me more foresight into that kind of thinking.
sure. I saw an image where there on one side there's a man with a dog walking and he's got a bubble around him around his thoughts and he's thinking about all these things he's got to do. And then the dog's got one bubble around him and the thoughts are, "Oh, I'm in the park where they're headed." And it's like, sometimes just being mindful and we hear that a lot, but being present in the moment and enjoying what you have is pretty much all we should be about.
100%, right? Being present is so important. And for the entrepreneurs out there listening to this, I'll be the first one to throw my hand up. It is really difficult to be present when you're creating something or working on something. Ultimately, where you're at is never going to be enough. That's just an entrepreneur's internal motor. Not everybody has that, but many do. And being able to take a second and smell the roses, for me, it was okay, Jackson a year ago, if he knew what was going on now, how would he feel? Like, would he be excited and fired up? And for me lately, the answer has been yes. And so that moment to be present, all right, good, we're good. Now move forward. Let's keep going. Let's get bigger. Let's grow. Let's do that thing. But those moments to smell the roses and truly appreciate life, the opportunities you've been given, the opportunities you've created, while they're short, to have those moments, they're so impactful.
We see or we hear about all these recruiting firms out there or staffing firms, but no one has brought it to today's time. And, not to play down on them, but you guys have modernized certain things and made it more relatable for somebody that graduates and says, hey, I need to find a place. Are they going to go to XYZ firm that's been around for 50 years and the process is 50 years old, right? So, like, it
Hmm.
takes forever to get through the system. And yeah, it is a long process, but I think you guys have been able to speed that up for individuals to get out there and do what they love to do, which is remarkable. Has that been interesting for you to see from a technology standpoint of what it used to be like, the history of recruiting and staffing versus what you guys are doing today?
Absolutely. I remember one of my first business cases we'd worked on in university was the story of Blockbuster and Netflix, right? And that disruption that occurred within an industry. And when you look at recruitment, similar to my good friends at Good Lawyer, shout out Brett Colvin, who started a phenomenal business. When you look at recruitment, it's an industry that is a titan. And by that, I mean it's been around for a long time, it's necessary, and it's expensive. There hasn't been much innovation within the industry. And at the end of the day, everybody's going to need to hire, and companies are willing to pay a price for that. With Upwardly, I realized that even through my own experiences being on the candidate side, that recruiters were often extremely transactional. They would look at your resume, they'd move you onto the company, and that's it. See you later. And often you were left in a black hole wondering, what just happened? I got an interview. I haven't heard from the company in weeks. I don't know what's next. There's no follow up. Or maybe you didn't even get to the interview stage. Maybe you didn't even meet the recruiter in person. They just took your resume and forwarded it on. So there was a human component missing from that. And as I went through my career down in Austin, uh, I'm seeing the other side, the business side of companies being extremely frustrated with their recruiter. Often, the recruiters were working with teams who didn't decide to work with that recruiter. That was just what the company did. And there was a lot of frustration because the recruiter's just not answering, not hitting the targets, not getting the right kind of people in, and these people aren't working out. So something needed to change, obviously. In an industry that old, there's always room for change. And that's what we aim to do with Upwardly. We consider our client relationships partnerships. We want to be an extension of their team so that a hiring manager that has to post a job, go through resumes, get on an interview, only to find out that person isn't the right fit. Instead, they can 10x essentially what their power and capabilities are by having an entire team with Upwardly to focus on that part of the recruitment. Not only are we going to give a lot more energy to it because it's what we do every day, but we're going to be able to find that right identity, that right person, that right profile, and tell you what we know about them, which a lot of recruiters really are only scratching the surface on what that looks like. For people, when you come to Upwardly, if you're looking for a role, if you're working and you just want to hear what's out there, the first thing we do when you come through our site is set up an introduction with our team. And we ask you to actually bring two questions that you'd like us to ask you. The reason we do that is I remember coming out of school and going on all these interviews. And, I wished at the end, like, sure, it went well, but I wish I could have talked about what being an older brother was like and what I learned from that. Or I wish I could have talked about, being a captain on some of my sports teams and the lessons I learned because I felt like they would translate into what my opportunity was. And being able to do that is such an impressive starting point for us to create our relationships with our candidates. We hear stories of overcoming adversity every single day. And those are the people, which is the majority of us that have stories to tell. Like, that's how we understand what drives you. That's how we know what kind of a culture or company you're going to fit into. And that is empowering, the stories we get to hear. We placed a young man named, well, I'll save his name, but maybe he'll want to come on one day, early on at Upwardly. And he wasn't from Calgary. He was actually from out east, and he was about 19, 20. He was leaving a difficult family situation, wasn't really supported, wanted to come out west for opportunity. What he had done was He didn't have money to go to school, so he moved to Calgary and he started at a car dealership and very quickly became one of their top performing salesmen. But he wanted to get into tech. So he reached out to Upwardly, and listening to his story and then connecting him with an amazing local company here, Kudos, which is a tech company built here in Calgary over the last decade, being able to advocate for that story to them, they saw the potential that this guy brings. If we give him a shot, he doesn't have the degree we're looking for. He doesn't have the years of experience in tech that we're looking for, but he has a drive that is going to outperform anybody who's gotten that degree or who has that, expectation of a role. This guy has the mentality of, if you give me this shot, I will show you that this is the best decision you've ever made. And because we actually took the time to get to know that, instead of saw his resume and said, that's not a fit, he has now had 3 promotions and is leading a team. And it's a powerful, powerful story of what happens every day at Upperly Careers.
I love that story. Wow. You know, we all often hear is like papers don't make the person makes the papers. In life, right? It's who you are. It's not what you have. Oftentimes, I mean, it is important for certain accreditations. You'd want your
Yeah.
surgeon to have certain qualities and traits,
Yeah. Yes.
but
Yeah,
beyond all those
absolutely.
things, on the everyday front, I think it's who you are. How do you carry yourself? How do you treat people? Can you converse with one another? Can you listen? And can you formulate ideas together? Not all will work, but at least you're trying, right? Giving it your best sometimes is a start.
I agree 100%. And I wish, if I could give advice to anybody that's looking for a new career or a new opportunity, first and foremost, reach out to Upwardly. Secondly, though, it would be, consider what drives you and don't be afraid to share that. If it's your family, if you are trying to make enough money to put your kids through sports or school, share that. Be human. We all are human. The person on the other side of the interview is human, and showcase your failures. Show what you've done to learn and find that opportunity. Talk about those things. They're just as important as the accreditations you've received. And in my opinion, they're even more important.
I love what you're doing in such a fast-paced tech world that we're in. You're still applying the humanization of a person. We're losing that slowly. I know things like ChatGPT. I saw you talk about that on LinkedIn a little bit, and you're a little concerned too. I mean, it's super cool and fun to play with, but you do wonder, right? Like, where are we headed? What's going to be real?
So,
What's
yeah,
not?
it's a fascinating shift in our world, in our lives. And I remember being young, Zach, and hearing about how rapidly technology is evolving. And this was like the first iPhone, right? Like things like that. You think, wow, technology continues to get faster and faster. And there's like an equation, there's a rate of which it's expanding. But to be here now in 2023 and to see how quickly one ChatGPT and this whole accessible and the utility of AI has emerged is fascinating. Um, I wouldn't say like concern for me. The concern is just the unknown. I'm more excited about it, and I think that if that's the direction things are going, like how do we use that? I really view the new AI tools as right now, they're not going to take your jobs away, but somebody who can leverage those tools will. And so I'm encouraging everyone to try out ChatGPT, ask it questions, watch the YouTube videos for our younger audience, watch the TikToks, learn kind of the behind the scenes of it, because even in your day to day, it's not going to replace what you're doing, but it will replace the people that can't keep up with it. And it's not hard. I've got my grandfather on it, I've got my parents on it, and they're fascinated by it. They're probably a little bit more scared of what it means, right?
Yeah.
Because you talk about what they've seen in a
The
lifetime,
robots.
and it's, yeah, yeah, right. But I think it's a really powerful tool that everybody should at least become familiar with, and it has the capability to be used uniquely to everybody.
Has ChatGPT or certain tools like that help with recruiting descriptions and elements like that? Have you been able to play around yet?
For us, it's been interesting to define, all right, you are act as Upperly Careers, an innovative recruitment agency focused on empowering the stories behind people, and now give me 10 examples of, I don't know, like trends that you're seeing in recruitment that relate to our business or things like that that you can get so unique. For me, it is a great place to find ideas, to learn, kind of like live learning. Like you can ask it questions, you can continue what your curiosity is, you can see what I guess is popular or trending in a centralized platform that, I'm not having to go on Twitter and Reddit
It's
or
Google on
just social
steroids.
media. It is. It is. It's crazy. And I think it certainly already has changed the world. It'll continue to. I don't know what that looks like, but I do know it's a great way to find ideas, to become more efficient with what you're doing. And I believe everybody should at least be playing around with it so
I
that you get
agree.
familiar because it's not going anywhere.
When you were in Austin, I went down to Austin last year for a conference. What a place, by the way.
Place. Yeah. Shout
I
out Austin.
Yeah,
I
it felt
love
like I
that
was
city.
home. Like it felt like home. I was scooting around all there, and it is hot, by the way, in June. Oh my goodness.
I see a lot of similarities to Calgary this way. But the reason I went to Austin from university was because I wanted to go somewhere that reminded me of Calgary when my parents were graduating university. Calgary was boomtown. You go there, there's abundance of opportunities, there's a buzz around the city. And I wanted to find a city that was like that and learn from it so that I could hopefully get Calgary back on track or start a business that, leaned into that kind of element of creating that buzz and bringing back the energy. And Austin, obviously, the research I did, number one, right? Like that was a city that young people flocked to. A big reason was the businesses there were building career paths and they were focusing on potential, not what your experience is. We'll teach you the experience. Do you have the drive to learn? And if you do, and if you're a fit, here you go. And what I loved about going out in Austin, which I'm starting to see more and more in Calgary, it's not clicky. You don't go out and stick with your group. Down there, nobody was from there. And everybody was building their own network and connects. And you could talk with anyone and you could share perspectives. And in arguably one of the most divisive times in the US, it felt like we were sheltered from a lot of that. Where in my own friend group, I had Democratic friends, Republican friends, Libertarian friends. You didn't focus so much on the things that weren't necessarily in our control. We focused on the kind of people they were and how awesome it was that all these people from different backgrounds and places had come together and get along so well and love to have a good time and eat brisket. So I love that city. I see it as a model for our city in a lot of ways. And this morning they just announced a direct flight on WestJet back to Austin. So I'm looking
Come
forward to
on.
that
Really?
returning.
Nicely
Yeah,
done.
yeah,
I had to
yeah.
go to, I
It'll be
think, like
great.
Minneapolis and then, yeah, it's back and forth. But oh, that's gonna be exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, chaos. They actually had it when I was living there. They announced it and they started it and then COVID happened, so they took it away. Um, but now it's back. Yeah, as of this morning, I think it starts up in May. So if you haven't been down to Austin, get down there. Beautiful city, very cool, and I think our city can learn a lot from a city like that.
The data trends of what happens in Austin versus what happens in Calgary, and obviously beforehand of the careers. So in Toronto, a lot of Calgarians were moving out east for those jobs. Now they're coming back. Has things changed? So is it now clean energy and technology versus, you know, oil and gas? I don't know. It's a
Yeah,
very
no, it's
controversial topic, but it doesn't
you
have
know,
to
it's
be.
it
It doesn't have to be.
It, that's exactly it, Zach. It doesn't have to be in it, and it should be something like most things where we encourage conversation around it versus divisive yelling. But with Calgary and energy and tech and film and arts, Calgary used to be the one trick pony, and it relied heavily on oil and gas. what the oil and gas industry did, which is why I believe it's one of the most resilient industries in the world, is it readapted and made the single largest investment in renewable and clean tech when it comes to net neutrals and low carbon emissions. Nowhere else than Canada, specifically Alberta, has invested, the companies that have, as well as the government, to create a new energy hub. Oil and gas is not going anywhere, but there are new ways to think about it. And when we're supplying the cleanest supply in the world and the world needs it, I believe we should be there to provide it. But outside of that, when you look at the political environment of our country and of society, there is one place in North America that we should be screaming from the rooftops about, and it's Calgary, because there are not many places where the dream of buying a home at 30, having great education, having a great opportunity for work, having one of the highest qualities of life in the world, that's here. And, with inflation and the political scene, the dream of having that home at 30 it's almost unrealistic in most other North American markets. Here it is realistic. I'd argue the most realistic out of any other North American market. And that is very attractive. That is very special. That is the model that the rest of the country should be looking at. And, what a beautiful place to be. I wish we had leadership that put themselves out there to say how great things are versus trying to change the narrative of what we need to become. I'm a big believer in what the city is and the opportunities it provides. And, you'll certainly hear me talking more about that as life goes on.
I love that. And definitely we'll have to have you on again, and continue the convos. But do you see
Anytime.
upwardly moving to Texas as well at 2.0 there?
Yes. I would love to. I think what we've been able to do now, we recruit across North America. We have operations and recruit people in the US as well as all the major cities here in Canada. And while I'll always want Calgary to be HQ, the home base, I believe that having one location down in the States to be the US location will be awesome as well. And for a guy like me who loves warm weather, maybe the cold months are spent down there. But, at the end of the day, none of this is possible without Canada, without Calgary. The life here is a great one. It's easy to, point out every day what needs to change and what needs to be fixed. But I hope everyone listening can, think about a few things that they love about this place and challenge themselves to maybe communicate that versus, all the negativity that we see that's much easier to talk about. It's hard to talk about the positive things sometimes. And I want to remind everyone it's okay to do that.
When we look at Jackson 10 years from now, this is a digital time capsule. Where do we see you? What do you envision?
Hopefully 10 years from now, I've got a family. I've got a few initiatives that I'm starting now have really taken off, the Beacons of Hope with Upwardly as well. And, hopefully in 10 years, I'm surrounded by the same amazing people and new ones that inspire me and motivate me every day.
We've talked about beacons of hope a bit today. What is that exactly for the listeners, and how can they be a part of this movement that you've co-founded?
Absolutely. The Beacons of Hope was an initiative that really snowballed out of a few different things that happened last year. I was meeting with my grandfather, who is a lifelong Calgarian, and I just moved back to Calgary. And a lot of my talking track and things that I was communicating were talking about, what makes Calgary Calgary. And I wanted to chat with him about it. And so we sat down and had a conversation. And I asked him, what makes Calgary great? And we talked about the kindness, the diversity, the volunteerism, the entrepreneurial spirit, that maverick mentality to take on things that are just too big or supposed to be too big, but find a way to get them done. And I actually asked him to peel that back one layer, like what about Calgary makes those characteristics shine through? And very quickly we realized it's the fact that we can live here safely and securely. And then you kind of reflect on that and you wonder, well, who are the people that every day are making this a safe and secure place to live? right? It's our officers and it's our frontline people. And obviously, at that time, policing had become the most divisive, polarizing topic, uh, arguably in the world, but certainly in North America, especially with what was going on in the US. And I wanted to find a way to connect the Calgary Police Service, what they're doing here. At first, I wanted to learn about it, but I wanted to connect them with young people so that ideas could be shared and perspectives could be heard. It wasn't supposed to be this online yelling thing. It was really like, let's see what we can do here in Calgary and tap into that maverick mentality and do something important. So I reached out to the chief of police, Mark Neufeld, who is a former guest, and we connected. Immediately, I was blown away about all of the things that you never hear about that they're doing and that they're leading the way on. And I realized right then and there, we need to do something. So the Beacons of Hope became an event that we held last year in May, where we brought Calgarians together to acknowledge and appreciate the people, our hockey coaches, our teachers, husbands and wives, the fellow Calgarians that are on the streets every day, making this a safe place to live, and just to say thank you. I don't think the public had ever had an opportunity to say thank you and to say, I see you, I hear you, I appreciate what you are doing. For me, continuing those opportunities of collisions and bringing people that haven't had experiences with law enforcement officers to have those conversations, because it's important. It's important to have that perspective and to share that as a community. And so that's what Beacons of Hope was. It was a beautiful, beautiful event. The goal was really to remind those people that have dedicated their life to service and safety that they are important to us. They matter. We need them. And thank you. And to also ignite that every police service in North America should be looking at what they're doing here and saying, this is what we should be doing as well. And that was the goal of the chief. That was the goal of me. I'm a firm believer in this. At the end of the day, if we continue to demonize law enforcement and be as divisive without having those experiences, what kind of people do we encourage to become a man or a woman or a person of service, right? If we are looking at that profession as a career based on merit and service to your community and safety, we will attract incredible people to continue holding that mantle. And that's really the goal with Beacons of Hope. So you can check out the website, beaconsofhope.ca. There's a recap video of the event last year. And we're in talks right now to keep it rolling into 2023. So hopefully updates on that to come.
I always wonder, how does Jackson have so much time to do so many things? But you make time for the things you love and you want to make a difference in. Isn't that true?
Well, right back at you, Zach. I think what you're doing with this podcast, the guests that you've had on, you're telling empowering stories, you're lifting people up around you, you're giving an avenue to share these stories, to hear good news, to hear good things. And I'm very impressed by you and your broad reach and how quickly you've turned this into.
Thank you so much. And looking forward to coming down one of these days. Would love to see Upwardly.
Anytime. The door is always open for you, Zach.